Hey everyone, it's Chris, and welcome back to another episode of Hope Regained. We promised you that we were going to sit together with you to help work on making life better, more exciting, more passionate, happier, and all those other pieces. Well, as much as we'd love to start with the laughs and the comedy and the fun, we've got to do a little bit of work first. And one of the things I think that we need to start talking about that's really important that we don't think about very much is emotional intelligence and why emotional intelligence gives us more control. It gives us more control over our life, how we act, how we react to others, how they react in turn with us. So that's in the environment we're in, whether it be at work, with family members, friends, anything like that. And I think an important piece that we need to talk about is everyone talks about various types of intelligence, whether it be book smarts, education with all the fancy letters after your name. IQ is a big one. But not a lot of people talk to us about our emotional intelligence. And in all honesty, it forms our motivation for most decisions that we make. Being human, it's a driver for us. It's the piece that pushes us forward. It's the reason we get out of bed. If you're afraid of something, fear takes over. It has strength. It has power. If you're in love, this starts the butterfly feelings in our stomach. It makes us do things that we might not do if we were just basing it on logic. So that's why emotional intelligence is a very, very important piece of our everyday lives. And it's not something that's studied at school or that we usually discuss with our families growing up either. In fact, I remember going to school and in kindergarten, we would talk about emotions, but they would draw pictures of faces. Smiley face, happy. Sad face, sad. Angry face, angry. But we couldn't really relate to what those pictures meant for the feelings on the inside. They never went into depth with regards to how it made us feel and how those feelings could change how we decide on something. So, for example, if you're really afraid of something, terrified, your heart's beating faster, you recognize that. You have the physical feelings, and they're a little bit different than anything that you would see on a piece of paper. You have to take notice how they match. Can you recognize when you're feeling that faster heart rate? Is it because you're afraid? Is it because you're excited? What does that mean for you? And how do you put the two together? If we could start to recognize that, then we can work through it better. We can stop, take a breath, breathe, count to 10, count backwards from 10, whatever that is, to help move those directions, move those feelings away from the head part. So head and heart really have to balance and work together. Heart is the emotional intelligence, head is the logic, and any other book smarts, things you've read and learned. And by those working together, they can bring you the best results. We tend to react impulsively, quickly, through feelings. So again, if you feel your heart racing, you're afraid, you may react, run away from a scary monster. Or, I don't know, if you're feeling the butterflies because you saw a cute guy or cute girl walking through the mall, then you might stutter or do something that you normally wouldn't do if you sat down and worked out a math logic puzzle. And that's the kind of difference that we need to start to link. So what we're going to do is we're going to start building a workbook for you so that it helps you work through those questions for ourselves. What makes us tick? What are the emotions that move us? What are we feeling? how do we really understand those? My pastime that I really enjoyed was sitting outside at a table, watching people, watch their facial expressions when they're interacting with others, by themselves, mannerisms, movements. Now, don't get me wrong, I used to judge. Well, who wouldn't? Until I started recognizing a pattern and connecting it to my own feelings. And then I started to realize, I'm not so different. I might just express it differently or come out with it differently. The only way we're going to start to know ourselves and take control of that is to be completely honest. We have to take accountability for what we feel. We have to understand who we are and be open. So we have to ask those tough questions. Is that something that you can sit down and do? Now, when you're working through this workbook, it's like journaling in a sense, but we're going to make it a little bit more structured. It's not all going to be boring and hard work. Trust me, we're going to find ways throughout the various episodes to laugh at ourselves too. It's something very important. We need to be able to laugh at ourselves. If we can't laugh at us, who's going to laugh with us? So let's start by being completely honest. You don't have to share this with anybody. This is for you. This is for me. Well, not your notes, but I have my own. And by writing those down, we're sharing with ourselves and building a relationship with ourselves first. Then you start to get to know some things. So I'll give you an example. If you're going through an event and at the end of the day, you sit down and you write down what happened. How did it make you feel? Why do you think it made you feel that way? Insecurity. Here's another emotion. And sometimes a lot of those stem from or come from events, things that happened when we were younger. We have memories that we keep within us that those events that happen now trigger feelings from when we were a kid. If you were riding a bike, for example, and fell down, grazed your knee, you may have a triggered response when you see that bicycle that tells you, I'm afraid, because you're remembering hurting your knee, the pain. And we're human. We want to avoid anything that's painful or uncomfortable or anything that doesn't make us feel our best. But if we want to understand ourselves, we have to confront those feelings too. So what I'm saying is, in this workbook, in this journaling, that we're starting with this first episode about getting to know ourselves and our emotions, we're going to have to write these things down. And I can guarantee you, in a few days, weeks, months from now, when you look back and you read it, you may feel differently. It will help pull out the severity of it. And when we start to understand who we are, we can understand what makes us tick. How can we change those responses? Do we like how we react to that? Do we like how it makes us feel? What is a trigger for us? And these are important things in controlling those emotions. What can we do to help cope? So if you're afraid, for example, and I'm terrified, absolutely terrified of heights, I know that. And if I were to stop and step up to the edge of a cliff, I'm going to feel heart pounding. I'm going to feel the sweats. My stomach is just going to start turning. What do? I avoid those cliffs. And that's okay. They're not important to everyday part of life. But if one of those episodes is triggered and you have a job interview, that could be more impactful. So we first need to weigh out where those triggers are. How is it going to impact us in our life? What triggers can we live with? And it's okay if we avoid them. And which things do we have to work through to get over those hurdles? And sometimes we have to dig deeper. Sometimes you have to look at, where does that come from and how can I work through it so it doesn't block me from the important pieces of my life that I want to make me happy. What is important to you? So we have to start by working through all of that. Second of all, there's logic. Anything that's great is a balance between these two. Emotion triggers the reaction first. Logic comes second. Logic is what we've learned. So we know the difference between right and wrong, but in an immediate situation, if your feelings overcome you, you still may take the wrong path that causes more harm later on because it's easier to react to that emotion. What we want to do with working with this piece right here of emotional intelligence is to differentiate between the two, sit down, pull back when we recognize some of these triggers to let us be able to introduce some of the logic. Then, with that moment of space that we give ourselves, we could sit back and say, okay, how do we balance the two out? Example, step up to a cliff, get a bad heart racing feeling, not comfortable, right? Logic is, or first reaction is for the emotion, is to step away, run away. Logic is, if we don't go by the cliff, we won't feel that. Also, logic is, it's not necessary to be over there. It's not going to impact or change our life. It's not going to cause us grief, happiness. It doesn't have an impact. Or, not in my case anyway, if you have a job that requires you to do something like that, A, you may want to find another job, or B, you need to work through it. So it's about the balance between the two. So when we start talking about figuring those things out, let's leave the logic aside for a minute. Let's sit down and work out all the feelings that we can think of. What does anger mean to you? When you feel angry, how do you feel? What's the first physical reaction you have? Can you rate it on a scale of 1 to 10? Is that anger way up here where you go into this blind rage, where you don't necessarily know what you're doing or how you're reacting? Or what is it like for you at level 1, where it's just a little bit, you put it under the rug, you can walk around it and let it go? We have to look at the range and the scale. Fear. Let me say, fear has a big power. It has a power on a lot of people. When you're looking at the division in the world today, and it makes us very uncomfortable. For a lot of us, war is something that terrifies us. It makes us uncomfortable. Being in harm's way makes us uncomfortable. But as divisive as the world is today, fear is something real. And if somebody plays with that fear that they can see within you, they have control over you. They have control over your emotion, and they can manipulate those emotions. If you're self-aware of that fear and you have the intelligence, the emotional intelligence, and you understand what's driving it, what your reactions are, what triggers it, then you get back some of that control. And you can decide how you're going to respond to it. We can work on all the exercises there are to bring it down to a level where you can introduce the logic. You can bring that balance out. And that's what I'm saying when I say it gives us control, much more control over our lives and how we respond to the people we care about, how we react, how we build relationships. It's a big, big talking point. So I want you to think about each strong emotion. It's difficult, I know, but at the same time, we need to work together at building a stronger self, a stronger control over ourselves. And then we can share that with others around us. And those changes will make a big difference. It can make a difference in your workplace, in your family, friends. So let's start with that. So if we can take this journal out, this workbook, I'm bringing you some questions and I'll link it into our website, link to this episode, so that you can work along with us. It will help generate the questions in your mind. And if you can promise to yourself, make a commitment to yourself, because in all honesty, aren't you more important to yourself than anybody else? It has to start there. Take the time, make a commitment every day to work, to give back to you. I give back to me. It took me a long time, and I've had lumps and bumps and some really painful struggles in my journey that finally made me realize I couldn't keep going the way I was going. Everything was so overwhelming. It overpowered everything I did. And it was a big block. It was blocking me from having any opportunity for happiness, success in any way. The rationale just wasn't there. So by taking the time to research, I started to find that if a psychiatrist or psychologist sat down and went through black and white that was in a textbook, it wasn't an answer. These were all scientifically focused, measured pieces of the brain that they were finding, but they weren't taking apart a piece that was the most important piece of a human, which is emotion. So I started asking the question, I started pulling up books and reading, and found that in today's world, they have courses on emotional intelligence. Now, it's mostly for the corporate world. Of course, that's where the money is. We know how money makes the world go round. But in actuality, if we apply it to everyday life, it makes a lot of sense. It doesn't come overnight. It takes a lot of insight, and it can be quite painful. But the best way to do it is to start the exercise. So some of the first questions that we need to start asking ourselves is, okay, how do we feel? What makes us tick? Look back at it 2 or 3 days later. How does it make you feel when you read it the second time? What's important to you? What connections, what gets the physical pieces going? So if you're feeling fear, what's the physical reaction you have? If you're feeling love, what's the physical reaction? Are you too attached? Do you feel other feelings of anxiety that they're going to leave? Let's try to connect those pieces of where they come from. We'll dive into those bits and pieces, into digging, where did that feeling come from? Where did that emotion get so powerful, and how? It's stuff that develops as we go along. So we'll ask those questions in another episode when we start doing deeper work. But the big part is if we start to block them and shut them down, we think, oh, we can function much better then. Then we're going to be more successful because we have control. But that's not true. By blocking them, you're losing out on joy, happiness, experiencing the extreme parts of life that we should be enjoying the most. If you're going to dull down the pain, dull down the hurt, you're also dulling down the happiness and the joy. And you deserve to experience that at the top of its level. You just have to learn how to balance it out with the pain and the hurt. It's part of life. It's part of growing. It's part of the experience. It's learning. So what we need to do now in the next question with the physical part, what are we feeling when we feel a certain emotion physically, is look at what emotions do we recognize within ourselves? What brings you joy? What brings you pain? What makes you so angry? I know a lot of people say, oh, I hate. I hate. It's a word we commonly throw around. A little bit too common, too easy to throw around. But hating is really not an emotion. If you think about it, it's a fear, it's a pain, it's a hurt. It's a different way of expressing all of those things. But if we let it build up inside us and we don't work through it and we don't share it or express it or find a healthy outlet, then it builds up. And we're human. We snap. It's possible. So to keep healthy and to be able to bring the logical, cognitive side of the brain into the mix, we need to make sure we don't get bogged up with all of that. So while we're working through this and we deal with the honesty within ourselves, we're going to have to go to some painful places. But I want you to balance that out with some really joyful places. What brought you extreme joy? When were you at your happiness? What made you feel really good about yourself? When did you feel warmth where your heart was just going to explode? Was it a really great piece of pizza? A really great piece of steak? Or would maybe giving a hug to somebody you love and just holding on tight and knowing that they're there? It can be anything. Your happiness is going to be different from the person next to you. So, I'm not judging. Don't judge yourself. While we're doing this, don't beat yourself up with a bat. Look, we all do it. We all beat ourselves up. We need to stop. We need to be our best friend. So, next topic. Let's see how we can nurture our emotions. That means bring out the best in them. Yes, I get angry, as we all do. Yes, I get hurt. I feel it. But how do we nurture it? How do we make the best of it? How do we learn from it so it doesn't feel like we're just wasting the energy? Stop. Slow down. What do you need to calm that anger? Do you need to find a solution? What's important to you when you're feeling pain? What brings you comfort? If you're feeling joy, how do you prolong that, savor it, enjoy it, and really give it the quality it deserves? Really focus that time. These are things, again, that we're going to have listed for you. These questions, we'll have it all outlined for you in this workbook that we're bringing page by page each time we bring you a different episode. And then you can connect with it. Give it some thought. It's not going to be one night. It's not going to be a day. I'll give you an example, though. After doing this work and making a commitment to it day by day, what you will find is you will stop. When you feel something, you're going to be much more aware of it. That self-awareness is key. And when you feel something, then you're going to be accountable for it. It's yours. Own it. It's okay. We don't have to be ashamed for how we feel. We're supposed to feel. So own it. Be proud of it. But then take that step back. And you find when you start looking at it, working through it, understanding how it pertains to you, how it's going to impact you, how it makes you feel, how does it impact your day-to-day life? Being really, truly honest with you. You're your best friend. If you can't be truthful with yourself, then, hey, why should anybody else be truthful with you? Sit back, own it, feel it. You'll notice over time, it'll get to a point where you'll be able to breathe, a deep breath, count to 10, stay in the moment, analyze that feeling you had, and bring it down to a level where you can bring the logic in. Now, with joy, I agree. You should just take it for the moment and live it to the fullest. As long as you're not doing something that's going to cause yourself danger. So you have to be aware of that too. But the self-awareness is going to let you experience these emotions in a way that's going to give you growth, in a way that even the pain is going to make sense, because you'll know everything is going to be okay. And it's okay to feel these emotions and let it out. It's okay to be human. So what we're hoping you will do is make the commitment to yourself. And I ask that of you today. And we will work together. Hey, I'm not going to profess to be an expert because I'm still human too, and I work at it every single day. It's that commitment to yourself. Be honest. It's all right. Nobody's going to judge you. Nobody's going to fault you. Just it's something for you that you share with you. And over time, if there's somebody you feel that you can connect with and express it and share it with, great. But it's about being in that safe place to do all of it first. So we're going to provide it to you on our website, www.hoperegain.com. If you look for this episode, it will be a link embedded in there with worksheets for you to print out. Over time, maybe you can express in comments or private message, connect with us. Safe space. We won't share it with anybody and we won't judge. But we want you to have that outlet to feel who you need to feel you are. Be who you are. Connect with you. Let's do it together. Let's learn. And if there's something I haven't seen before or felt before or understood, every piece helps that we can share with each other. We don't need to put out names or faces or anything like that. But only together, only working and making the commitments to ourselves, only being honest, accountable, can we start to move forward. And if you make that change within you, I make the change within myself, those positive vibes will spread out. It will change everything around you, I promise. Things will get lighter, better. It's as if when we have that control over those emotions in a place that makes it positive and we make that conscious decision, everything changes around us. Things start to fall into place. It really works. It might not happen the first night. We don't have a magic wand. But over a period of time, it takes work. Make that commitment. If this is something that you think would help someone you know, please share our podcast, share this episode, and let them know we're here for them too. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube, as well as all podcasts that you listen to your favorite podcasts on. And then find us, subscribe, or follow. And we hope to connect again with you for the next episode real soon.